Hi, everyone. Steve Adubato here. More importantly, it is our honor to have on Mark Barden, who is co-founder and CEO of Sandy Hook Promise Action Fund. Good to see you, Mark.
Good to see you too, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
Mark, we've done a whole range of programs dealing with gun violence. We'll continue to do that. But your perspective on this, your role in this fight is very unique and personal. Losing your son, Daniel, back on December 14, 2012 at Sandy Hook Elementary School. In the 10 years since, the biggest progress we've made, A, and then B, let's talk about the most pressing need moving forward. Progress is where?
There has been progress. I know that it's excruciatingly slow, just ask us, but we are making progress across a lot of different areas on the shooting epidemic that we're suffering from here in this country. The work that we do at Sandy Hook Promise is truly the essence of prevention, where we know that almost every time there's an act of violence, there's a suicide, a mass shooting, there are warning signs beforehand. People talk about it, people give off signs and signals before that happens. And what we do at Sandy Hook Promise is we train students, parents, teachers, how to look for and identify those warning signs, and then give them the tools to connect that individual to the help that they need before it becomes a tragedy. To date, we have students who have been trained in our Know the Signs programs, Say Something and Start with Hello, have now averted at least 11 school shootings that we can speak to. And that's tremendously significant if you think of the impact, the lifelong impact, the concentric circles of impact that come from just one mass shooting or school shooting. And so students trained in our programs have now prevented 11 mass shootings that we can speak to, and hundreds of suicides, either by self-reporting or reporting on a peer through our Say Something program and or using the anonymous reporting system.
Question. People watching right now, listening to you just say you and your team, the folks in the organization have prevented school shootings. First of all, make that clear how, and then B, what can someone watching right now do, all of whom are concerned about the potential in their own local schools? Talk to them, please.
Sure. So let me back up a little bit. What we do at Sandy Hook Promise is that through research, we have identified that people give off warning signs before they commit an act of violence, either against themselves or others. Our Say Something program is designed to train students how to look for those warning signs and then give them the tools to tell a trusted adult who can connect that individual to help, or to use our anonymous reporting system, which is a live tip line that's staffed with trained crisis counselors who can then make an intervention and get somebody help before it becomes a tragedy. To date, that we can speak to, 11 school shootings have been averted by students who recognized warning signs, told a trusted adult, and an intervention was made, and that individual was gotten to help, and tragedy was averted. So we bring these programs to schools and communities at no cost, thanks to the generosity of our donors. Folks watching at home can come to the website, sandyhookpromise.org, find out how you can help us, share the word, spread the word through your networks, talk to schools in your district that don't have Sandy Hook Promise programs and that could use them. Our two main programs under our Know the Signs heading are Start with Hello, which trains students about the potential dangers of extreme social isolation and how to connect with students. And the other program is Say Something, which trains students how to recognize those warning signs and connect to a trusted adult.
But can you tell us something about your son, Daniel, that made him so special? Because we can talk about policy, we can talk about programs, and all those things matter. But I want to make sure you have a chance to say something about your son and why he was so special.
Thank you, Steve. Daniel was our third child and the youngest of our three children. And I will say, James and Natalie and Daniel all have wonderful capacity for being outstanding citizens. Daniel had a beautiful way of noticing his peers, noticing others around him, even picking up the worms off the sidewalk so they wouldn't burn in the sun and putting them in the grass. taking the carpenter ants out of our house outside because he thought they should be with their families, and looking out for his peers in school. And it was every parent loves to hear that their child is being a good citizen when they're away from the home. And we heard so many wonderful stories about how Daniel would notice somebody if they were sitting alone or having a hard day, that he would want to connect with them. He had such a beautiful sense of empathy. And the work that we do at Sandy Hook Promise for me is very personal, and it's that I've found it's an appropriate way to honor Daniel, his life, the way he conducted his life, by bringing those values to other people, and to quite literally prevent other families from having to endure the pain of losing an innocent loved one to preventable gun violence.
Mark, there are people watching, many of whom believe this. Government can't do very much. They're not going to disagree with anything you said because you're talking about prevention, the work that you and your colleagues have done. The website will be up as I speak right now of Sandy Hook Promise Action Fund. But here's the thing. What specific legislation, policy change, one in particular, nothing solves this, but some people believe it's, quote, inevitable. There's nothing we can really do governmentally. You don't buy that, do you?
Oh, not at all, Steve. Policy is part of the equation, part of the solutions that are available to us, and an important part, but there are many, and they're not all policy. And no number of laws or regulations will prevent every act of violence. It's just plain and simple. However, we have been able, through our policy team, they're incredibly capable. They have been able to write and pass bipartisan legislation at the state and federal level that will help students have access to suicide awareness training, suicide prevention training, other mental health services, violence intervention programs at the community level, grant funding for us to do our work so we can continue to bring our programs to schools at no cost to the schools. The Bipartisan Safer Communities Act that President Biden just signed into law has many of those provisions as part of the initiatives in that language. So there are so many opportunities for us to pass meaningful legislation. The Extreme Risk Protection Order is proven to work, save lives. Closing the loophole in the federal background check system. We know that will save lives. It's evidence-based. It works. It's constitutional. And so that with community-based violence intervention programs, funding for mental health programs, there are so many things we can do from a policy perspective that kind of work in coordination with the programmatic approach to have a more holistic approach to really bring the numbers down. And then over time, especially with the work that we're doing at Sandy Hook Promise, over time, not only at scale and numbers, but as students are continually exposed to the curriculum of looking out for one another, being good upstanders for one another, observing warning signs and connecting somebody to help, that's a cultural change. And over time, when class after class after class, students are exposed to this curriculum of just being a good neighbor and being observant of one another, that's represents to me a culture change that's going to be reflecting a more connected, kinder society as we move forward.
Mark, cannot thank you enough. On behalf of everyone in the public television and public broadcasting family and community, we thank you and everyone at Sandy Hook Promise for the work you're doing. Thanks so much, Mark.
I appreciate that, Steve. Thank you.
We'll be right back.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by the Turrell Fund, supporting Reimagine Childcare. Choose New Jersey, PSE&G, Rowan University, Johnson & Johnson, Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, MD Advantage Insurance Company, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, and by New Jersey Sharing Network. Promotional support provided by NorthJersey.com and Local IQ, part of the USA Today network, and by BestOfNJ.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sharif Elnahal. Did you know that there are nearly 4,000 New Jerseyans waiting for a life-saving transplant? And 67% of those people are people of color. Just one organ and tissue donor can save 8 lives and enhance the lives of over 75 people. Let's come together to raise awareness in our diverse communities. Donation needs diversity. You have the power to make a difference. For more information or to become an organ and tissue donor, visit www.njsharingnetwork.org.